Hey friends, I'm Daniel Nesbitt, and this is Designing a Sans Serif Typeface. We made a lot of progress in the last episode, and I want to capitalize on that momentum for this one, so I'm going to dive right in. I think today we're going to focus on the lowercase, finishing up lowercase characters here. So right off the bat, I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to use the lowercase u as my starting point here, mostly because I want the width that the u has, and then we're also going to want the stroke width as well. So one of the difficult things I'm going to have to figure out here, and maybe there's a better way to do this, is I want the apex to be as close to the center as possible. The thing is, it's not probably going to visually land on the center line, which is okay. So we're just going to try and get it close here. I'm just going to zoom in and make sure we're all good to go there. So a couple things that I need to keep in mind is there's going to be some overshoot here, because with these pointed ends, it may get the visual that it's going to look a little bit narrower, so getting that in there will help out a little bit. The other thing that I want to go ahead and do as well, and we'll go ahead and rotate, well actually let's do it this way. Let's grab a circle here. And I want to make sure that I'm getting the appropriate width here for this downstroke. I'm kind of thinking as I'm looking at this that I may leave, because we draw this stroke here down and to the right and then up and to the right. So obviously this one's going to be a little bit narrower. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add a point there, and then we're going to use that to set us up with what should be the appropriate width there. So I think that actually looks pretty good. Now, one thing that I'm going to do, which is a trick that I've seen numerous type designers employ, and I don't want to do that. But one thing that you see a lot is tapering off these strokes a little bit as it gets down towards this bottom area here. This is just going to help us a little bit, help it a little bit look like it's not so thick down there. Now I'm debating, I might not even need that. I might just be able to taper them straight down. I think that looks okay. All right, so off to the races. And I think for this one, we're just going to go with 70 as my side bearing. Maybe even 60. Just to give it a nice little look there. Perfect. So since we did the V, you can about imagine which one's next. So going for the W. Now for the W, I think I'm going to aim for the same width as the M on this one. That seems like it would be about right. So I'll just do a quick copy paste job here and get that. So again, with a little bit of overshoot, which is totally fine. And then I'm just going to push these a little higher so I can see what I'm doing. Now the thing with this is that we've got this upstroke now, and we tapered that, which was fine. We really don't need that taper here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to just get rid of it completely. So we'll bump that in like such. And then pretty much the same here too. We'll see how this ends up for us here. And then the last thing I'm going to take care of is taking those 2 points, taking the correct 2 points. There we go. That one and that one, and just move that over so we get a little bit better of a join there. So I think that should work out pretty well. It's, like I said, it's roughly the same width as the M, which is fine. And then we'll just go back here. And there we go. Down to the W. So if we do our test here, and the I is actually probably a difficult one to do. Let's try this route. Actually, for this one, we'll go like that. Now, the thing with these angled letters is that I probably could go even farther in. So not 4, let's try 40. There we go. And that might actually work a little bit better. Now, again, the other thing that I'm considering too is I'm looking in this gap here and comparing it to this. I don't think it's a really fair assessment to do between this curved top of the N. That's just naturally a little bit larger of a space because you get that extra space here, and then obviously you get the extra space down here. That's probably where I'm going to go in and do some kerning to figure that out. But I think this point here, and this point here all look fairly good. So we're going to call it good on the W. The other letter that we can obviously do, once I click on it, there we go, is the Y. And again with this, I'm just going to do 40 for now. And the other thing that we need to take a look at is how we're going to have that Y end on the bottom. And for this, I'm just going to go back and grab the J. We're going to see if we can make this work somehow. So with the Y, I'm going to bring that stem down to there. And I think having an end, I'm just going to grab this, bring it down here, and take a look at where I'm at here. I think having an end maybe be about there. Let's try that and see what happens. So we're going to get a little funky with this for a moment, but that joins up pretty well there. And then obviously this needs to come over a little bit. Oops. And then I'm actually going to push this over as well some. And last, I'm just going to get these anchors as close to the same point as we can get. So that way we kind of get that nice little arc there, which is what I'm after. And I'm just going to move that over a little bit. So not too bad. One thing that I'm looking at here is it seems like there's a little bit of stuff going on here. And I probably just need to work out. I might even have to go back. Actually, we will go back to this. Looks like that was off a little bit there. Of course, this is the downside of reusing letters sometimes. And I know there are things like components that we can get into, which I won't be doing for the entire face, but that would make it easier here, that you wouldn't have to go back and continue adjusting each character that you used your like different pieces for. It's just easier to go back and do it on one. So the other thing that I'm going to do is just check out, as you probably noticed right away, this really didn't line up the best. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this. Actually, we're going to Let me just do it this way. Because truthfully, I was eyeballing it. It's a little bit better to have it do exactly what I want here. So I'm just going to take some time to go in and adjust all of that. The other thing that I'm going to do too is I'm actually going to bring this in a little bit. Make sure I delete the correct piece there. And then I'm also going to bring this top stroke down a little bit. So it is going to fall a little bit below the line, which is fine. But I just want to respect my vertical stroke here, making this all kind of look like the same weight. And then, like before, we're just going to kind of bump our anchors back into place. Those look pretty good. And if I just throw a few Y's out. Now, the other thing that I'm looking at here as well is probably with respect to this inner one, is it does look a little bit choppy here. So we're going to bring that up a little bit and then just bring our point down a little bit. So that kind of smooths it out a little bit, and I think it makes that look pretty good. And yeah, not too bad. So, can't think of really too many Y words using the letters that I have. But overall, not bad. The other thing that I'm going to take a look at here is just how these all play along, and that seems to be working out pretty well. Again, with some kerning, we can kind of tidy this, ironically, tidy this up a little bit, but I think this will be fine. So we'll roll with that for the Y. Now, last up, I'm going to just go ahead and tackle the X while we're at it. And I'm going to pull a few references to either side here as well. Now with the X, got to take into account, so I did the tapers here. And let's see, how do I want to handle this? So that one I know is an unedited that way. And I believe I can do that, and that gets us back to where we want to be. So even though I'm going to be tilting this even more, that at least gets us to a good starting point. I'm actually going to pull in the U as well, and I'm going to use that as my width gauge here. So again with this, I'm just going to go ahead and grab the circle and just going to do the best I can here to get a width for that. Oops. And really we want that to be 92 by 92, perfect. So that will work for that side. And then over here, what are we at, 85 by 85? That should work perfectly there. So those will be my two reference points. Now what I want to do here is we're going to take this and move it over so the outer edge is in line. And again, I'm going to bump that over one more to account for some overshoot. We're going to do the same over here. I'm actually going to bring this up just a little bit just to make sure I'm in line, and I am, again with some overshoot. Obviously that makes our X look just a little bit weird, which is fine. Now for the top part, I'm just going to go ahead and flip this way just so I get a more even bottom there. So the thing with the top is we don't want this to mimic what I just did on the bottom, because if I did, it actually probably would look a little bit weird, perhaps even a little bit lopsided, even though technically what I did would be correct. So instead what I want to do is, rather than bumping it 1 out, we're going to bump it 1, or actually technically 5 units in, and just kind of see where that's at. Now, I know too, the crossbar of my X is a little off as well, which I could be okay with for the time being. And we also haven't added the full weight yet either, as you probably gathered. This is a little bit on the light side of things as well. But what we want is, we want to kind of give it almost a, I think, is it a trapezoidal kind of shape or something like that, where the top isn't exactly the same width as the bottom. And we'll note this too when we get to the S as well, that's going to be a similar thing. Now the tough part with this is I can't just go and do this, because as you notice, it starts to affect things here a little bit, and then it's not in the way we want to do things. So what I need to do, and this is one of those moments where I would tell you that I'm all ears about solutions to this. This is the way I've done it, is you kind of have to go back and forth and balance each of these lines. And the idea is, if I just bring this back up to the top here, is that we need to find out, actually it looks like I did it on the first try. We need to make this wider, but we need to make it also angle it back the other way as well. We want to keep the center as close to the same width as possible, which can be a little bit tricky. This is something that I've often struggled with, because it's one of those deals, you get it right in one spot and then not the other, and there's a bit of back and forth. To be honest, this is the easiest way that I've found to do it. I'm sure there's probably better and easier ways, but yeah, so here you see, it looks like I'm off 4 points on that side, and probably 4 points on that side too. So what that tells me is, bring that into, and bring that into, and then, did I do my math right? No, I did not do my math right. I just made it worse. Let's try that again. So, let's see, out 2 and out 2. So that gets us back, I believe, to our original problem. Yeah, so the bottom needs to go, I think, by 4, if I've done my math right. It looks like it needs to go by another 3, so that. There we go. Now the fun part is just doing this even enough that we get back to our width. There we go. So now we've got an X. It looks a little bit on the thick side, but we've got the shape that we're after. So on that note, I'm going to go and thin it out just a little bit. Might need to go even more here. I think that looks a little better. Now I'm trying to ignore this middle section as well here. What I'm really trying to compare is the this to this and this to this. I think I'm actually still even a little bit too much. Let's go a little more radical and see what happens. Yeah, I think that works a little bit better. So like I said, I was ignoring this middle section here because this is where things get a little bit tricky with an X. So we don't just want this this section here to cross over like this, because the problem is that visually it looks like this line and this line don't exactly meet up. If you've ever stuck, the famous example that I've seen is if you've ever taken a glass of water and you've put a straw in it, and then you look at how the water bends the shape of the straw. It seems to bend the shape of the straw. That's effectively what we're trying to mimic here, is we want to kind of mimic that bend a little bit. Now that's a little much. And who knows, maybe that actually wasn't too bad at all, just going from there. But you see, visually, it actually kind of messes with your brain a little bit. And it looks like it's intersecting and it's going straight through, even though technically it's not. And that's really all I'm after here. One thing I'm wondering... Now that looks a little goofy. I think we'll stick with that. And then the other part that I'm going to do as well is taper that in just a tad. There we go. So if we zoom back out a little bit, that to me looks pretty good. I always second guess myself though on which way that needs to go, but I think I've got it the right way. If not, I'm sure I'll hear about it. So we're going to call that good on the X. So we're actually making some pretty good progress here. The other one that I was going to jump in on here was the R. As oops, pressed the right button on my keyboard there. Now this one, the R's always trick me out a little bit because so many people just would call it, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but they would call it good there, and that's not really what I want for this. The other thing that we probably noticed too is that the R's are tend to be a bit narrower as well, which is fine. That's what I'm aiming for here. So we're going to commit a few type crimes in the process here. There we go. But I'm going to get those kind of lined up. So obviously not. We'll just type out a word to make this kind of work. So if I leave this here, it looks goofy. It looks very goofy. It just kind of looks like I took an N and chopped it off a little bit. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to push that out a little bit, and actually we'll do that just to kind of help us out a little bit. And I just need to determine, I mean, visually we do want this to kind of look the same of sorts. Like I said, it's a difficult one to get right. I also don't really know how much I want this to curve down, which also makes it a difficult choice here on what to do. But if we compare it to the N with what I just did here, just do a little bit of an overlay, you can clearly see there's a difference, which is fine. And I like that the arc kind of curves out a little bit more here, rather than taking kind of that more blunt approach that the N does. I feel like that would be indicative of how you would write an R. So again, this is one of those things, even though we hacked up a letter, I don't want it to look like we hacked up a letter. So we'll call that good. Now for this, we did 40 and 80 there. I'm going to go 40 on that open side there. I think that gives us a good side bearing to work with. Yeah. And of course, the other thing that I'm trying to determine too is how much overshoot I want on this one, which I don't think I need as much. That looks a little bit better, I think. So now we can write the word running. Beautiful. And let's see here. The last one I think we're going to work with for today, because I want to give some special attention to the two remaining that you're probably looking at, the S and the A. But we're going to take a look at the K, because the K is kind of a fun one for me to work with. So we're going to grab that, and then from the X, we'll grab this piece. From the V, we will grab that piece. And think of a word, why not funk? So again, using my N as my unit of measure here, I'm just going to pop that in, and I'm just going to actually just grab that outer piece there, because that's really all I need to aim for here. Now, what we need to do is create a circle. We'll go with 85 for that one. And then for this one, that was 95. So we'll do a circle that is 95 points. There we go. And now we get to figure out how to make this work. So first things first, we're going to line this up with that outer edge, and then bump it over. I'm going to make a copy of that. We'll flip it so it's going this way. And then we will line those up, bump it over, perfect. So the thing with a K is that I don't really want that super boxy shape to it out front here. So even though I bumped it out by 5, what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to bring it back. I'm going to try about there, and we'll see where that goes. So I've got a lot of pieces flying around here, which is okay. And more or less what we're going to do here is I'm going to just kind of spitball the shape that I want. It might just be easier to grab that, do that. I think what I'm going to do is actually bring this down just maybe to about there. I kind of like how those angles meet up, keeping in mind that that's probably is close to a 45. Well, I shouldn't say 45 because it's probably not actually a 45. Nope, not quite. But we could make it a 45. Maybe we will, because why not? Let's grab that. I think that actually gets us pretty close. I think. Actually looks like it gets us spot on. Beautiful. And then, last but not least, I'm just going to drag this up a little bit so I can get my, or down if that wants to behave that way. Get my snapping where I want it to be. There we go. So now I know that's a 45-degree angle. I know my width is probably off going down. Yeah. Maybe not. This is one of those things where I think it looked a little bit better where we had it. So I'm going to continue with that, but I'm going to move this down just a tad farther. Maybe to about there. And then we're just going to cycle this in. And then similar to what we did for our other shapes at the beginning here, is I'm going to go through and just make sure that I have my width all set up the way that I want it. So this is going to be a little bit tricky because I know down here I can get by with just setting these 2 points right where I want them. That is the benefit of having it taper off like that. But then at the top, we need to obviously make some adjustments here. So I think the best way is probably just to go something like that. And then I'm just going to drag this up because I also know that I need to make it a bit wider. And make sure in the same process that I'm grabbing all the pieces that I need. There we go. So that gets us to 45, which looks about right. So I can get rid of my extra piece there, move that one out of the way, and then for this one, rather than playing the guessing game, we're just gonna cap it off there. So for here then, we know that the top part is correct. So all I need to do is just ensure that this portion is correct. And then the second verse, same as the first. We're just going to go through, push this out to where it looks about right. Put in a point there, and then go through and clean up our shapes. So immediately, you probably were screaming through your computer screen that that looks a bit thick, and I agree, it looks way too thick. We'll thin that up a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and extend it down that way as well. But I think that gets us pretty close. So I'm going to do 40 points on that side. I think we'll stick with 60 for now. And generally speaking, it's not too bad, but at the same point, it kind of bugs me too. So let's see, before I fully wrap things up, what we can do about that. I think, part of me thinks I could maybe just get by with rotating this in just a little bit. I'll fix some of these points in a moment here, but it gives it more of that K shape that I'm looking for. So we're going to roll with that. I think I can get by keeping that one on the baseline too. And then we'll just go add a point there, knock that out there. It looks a little better. I'm still not sure if I'm fully sold on the K, but it looks like a K. So there we go. That we're actually, before I go, just kidding, right? I'm gonna make one extra change here. Just gonna bring that out a little bit more as well. And then add my 2 points in, delete the top. I think that might look a little bit better, just to give it a little bit more of a square shape. So there we go. That seems like it was a pretty good run, getting the KR, V, X, and Y all sorted out. In the next episode, we're going to go through and finish off the lowercase side of this by taking a look at the S and the A. And the reason that I wanted to save those two for last was that unlike other letters, there's a few extra little things that I like to do for those, particularly with the S. I know a lot of people struggle trying to draw an S. So I wanted to share my secrets there. And then for the A, there's obviously the question of single story or double story. So I wanted to go ahead and explore what that might look like. So I hope to see you in the next episode. If you haven't already and you've been enjoying this, make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. And if you've got a moment, feel free to leave a comment. I'm always looking for feedback on the typeface. If you've got any tips or tricks of your own that you'd like to share, obviously not only me, but anyone else watching this video would probably appreciate that as well. So as always, stay safe and I will see you next time.